The white smoke has come up from the Tri-Cities, and we have a new manager at the helm for the Valley Cats and for several other teams. Lots of news going down this week on the Indie Ball Report podcast. $249. That's the number of episodes this is. We have an interview again today. That's pretty cool. Tri-City has a new manager. Staten Island has a new manager. We ran out of chowder, so we feel like we've been knocked out. And the Chargers also feel like they've been knocked out because currently they are down 42-0 at the half. Hi, Ryan. This is an Indie Ball show.
Yeah, we are recording pre-Chargers comeback. So, for everybody, congratulations to Easton Stick on going stick deep on the second half there. Got an exciting interview, man. I'm pretty hyped about it.
Yeah.
Talking Oakland baseball and not in the sort of depressing way that people have been talking Oakland baseball for the past several years, so that's fun. We're on like the cutting edge of podcasts doing that.
I mean, really, yeah. We're going to be positive about the Oakland Ballers and Oakland baseball as a whole. Tyler Petersen, the assistant GM, jumped on the show. That's about an hour and 20-minute long interview there. I still got to just clean that up and edit it down a little bit. But all in all, it was a solid interview. Really enjoyed it. You guys will like hearing it once we get through the news here first. But speaking of news, we got managerial hires, and I think the first one we're going to talk about is probably not the most interesting one, but it's also probably the better of the two, right?
Well, yes. And I am going to side note just to say, I love any time that you like reference how long an interview is before doing the editing so that everyone listening can actually compare if they want and see how much dumb stuff they had to cut out from us just like messing around. So yeah, but I would agree. And I would say maybe, I don't know if you said like, it's not like super exciting or whatever. I think I'm kind of excited about it because I think it's an organization that really needs to get this right now. So that's, I think this is, there's a word for it that I can't quite place, but it was definitely, I call it consequential. I think it's fair to say, at least in indie ball circles.
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty fair.
Dancing around it because neither of us are saying who it is. It's the Mark Minikasi going to Staten Island, I would assume is the one you're talking about.
Yes, that's actually it. So I'm back on track here. And, talking about Mark, I mean, I feel like this guy got some bad luck in that he keeps going to like either one and done organizations or not the most stable situations. I will say, I feel like Staten Island's starting to figure it out. Year one, obviously, not good at all. Year two got better. There was moments where you're like, there's hope here. And now maybe Mark gets to, be on a team that probably will exist the following year. He'll be able to bring in some of his guys. He'll be able to do a little bit more work with it. And all in all, I think it's a pretty solid hire when you consider Staten Island. At a certain point, you got to become realistic about what your current state is. And in their current state, I think Mark is probably the best they were going to do. And I don't mean that in any sort of a negative way, because he is a good manager. It's just, you were never going to get like the guys that we think of as the top tier guys, the top tier options that would have been out there. You're not getting that. So you have to kind of go down to the still good managers, but not top tier guys. And I feel like of the guys in that grouping available, Mark is probably the best of them. So.
Yeah, and for those who need a refresher or haven't been sort of following along with the Mark Minikasi journey, that was 2021, and he was the Charleston manager, and then 2022 went to Lexington to manage the Genomes. At the time, the presumption, was that he would take over Lexington the year after managing the Genomes. That's a whole other can of worms. But then Andy left Lexington. Andy Shea did, the owner, who was at the time longtime friends with Mark. And then the Genomes weren't coming back, so he was out of job again. Went to what was Frederick, then became Spire City, and then Spire City was on hiatus this year. So now that is what leads us to this point. I don't know, what's your sort of immediate vibe on this? Because he's had I would call a mixed bag of results, and I think a lot of that depends on the organization and things like that. He's been bringing a lot of similar, or a very similar roster with a lot of familiar faces at all these new stops too. So we kind of know what the blueprint is. But what's your feel for this for Staten Island?
From a Staten Island perspective, I honestly get the sense of that this is probably a little bit more on a stability side. I think they really haven't had that. And while, yeah, he's going to bring in the same guys, and we saw that had, I think, fairly safe to say, mixed results last year, probably more on the not great side. I still kind of like it a bit better. I think it's a division where with those guys, maybe they have a better chance of getting in that first half, just because we know second half will be Lancaster. It always seems to be. So second half Stormers is a thing. First half, obviously, you're going to be battling Long Island, which is arguably where they're at their strongest, seeing as, they have the slew of guys that will eventually get signed, but they'll still have April and May with them before they get picked up. So they'll have to fight that off. They'll have to fight York off. Some other competition in there as well. But just generally speaking, I think as a competitive perspective, they have probably the best shot they've had in a long time. If for no other reason than they have a guy that's done this before, which is more than you can say about Fonzie and Bush. Although I still think Bush was a notable upgrade. But then again, maybe it was just that Fonzie was that bad. So as far as organizationally, I think it means that we're creeping closer to getting it right. Now, whether
I agree.
Yeah, whether that's going to stay that way, whether that this is where we're going to stop making improvements at, I don't know, but we're getting closer to the right answer.
Yeah, it felt like some things definitely went right with Homer Bush. I've spoken pretty highly of Homer Bush and his work last year with Staten Island. Honestly, sort of over the past couple of weeks, I've talked to a lot more people about it because I thought it was interesting that he would not be returning. It sounds like it was a mutual thing, and the more I hear about it, the more I'm like, well, maybe it was the people around Homer Bush that were carrying a lot of it, which is not a bad thing because they're the ones staying in place. So hopefully they can keep the positives and continue to go with like an experienced indie ball manager who can certainly has a ton of roster building experience at this point because he keeps having to build from just about nothing. So this is a massive head start for him. The roster pieces started coming together with Staten Island last year. It looked really ugly early, and we've talked about how they kind of picked up steam as they went. So, I think they need a good year. Fan support's been, I think,
shaky.
Every time I say anything other than like something positive about the fan support in Staten Island, I get some DM with like, well, actually, yeah, hey bud, we got the numbers and it looks bad. So they need a good year, and they need to show that area. I think that they're a legitimate team that is serious, both on and off the field. So, this is one they need to get right. I think Mark is probably tired of bouncing around. I don't know if Staten Island is his long-term plan, but it is definitely one where like you need to show like, I'm not sure he needs to show anything. I mean, he's been in.
Yeah, I think we know kind of what
years,
he's doing now.
Yeah, but it's an opportunity for him to maybe control his own destiny, which is nice.
Yeah.
Because ever since, he did choose to make the Lexington move because he went from one Andy Shea team to the other and sort of a pre-planned maneuver. But that was basically, other than that, he's just been kind of riding the wave. So I think it would be good for him to have a good year, feel like he can kind of decide, like, do I want to come back to this role? Do I want to like have my pick of the litter when it comes to other jobs or whatever? And also, I don't know what the time frame looked like, but the Spire City thing was weird, how that went, because my initial instinct was like, damn, Mark kind of got screwed because it was kind of late in the game that they said, oh, Spire City's going to hiatus, and then now you're on the job market. But what it sounds like is he knew that, and that's what made some of the roster moves around that weird. But we're not going to go into that can of worms right now, or are we, Long Island?
You're really on the roster moves in this league of the last couple of months, aren't you?
I need therapy.
But yeah, no, I think it's a step in the right direction for Staten Island. So overall, if you were to grade this Mark Minikowski hire on his, what would we grade it?
Oh, damn. Okay.
Yeah, just after we finished talking about how he got me in trouble 2 weeks ago, I'm about to do it again.
I'll go a B for Staten Island, and that's mainly.
Okay, we agree on the B.
I feel like
Yeah.
I think a B, and I think it could have been higher. Except I do think it's an organization that really could have used some consistency by not switching over managers. But it is somebody who is used to walking into a dumpster fire, and it is a dumpster fire in Staten Island. However, it's a dumpster fire that's definitely
salvageable,
on its way to cleaned up from all I hear. So that is not me burying Staten Island. It's just speaking the facts and saying you're on your way. Just keep the momentum going.
I agree with the B. I agree for a lot of the reasons you said, where ideally you would clean it up by keeping the same guy year after year. That said, I'm kind of okay with going to Minikazi for the reasons you mentioned. He's used to walking into dumpster fires and situations that need to be cleaned up. As well, he is a bit of an upgrade in the fact he knows indie ball a little bit better, and it sounds like he can do a bit more. And realistically, I think the performance will be kind of on par from the guys. And if you can have the same face there for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, I think it's a worthwhile decision to make that switch. So I think it's a solid B2.
This is the best manager they've had.
Yeah.
I'll say that.
Yeah, definitely. From a Minikazi perspective, what do you rate this?
C.
C?
That's still an Atlantic League job. It's one with upward potential. It's one where you can look like the hero, and one where it seems to be on the upswing right now, as opposed to the last few jobs that he's grabbed. And it's a pre-existing team, essentially, which nothing has been. Charleston in their first year in the Atlantic League, Genomes, Spire City. So literally, yeah, it's a pre-existing team. So that's a huge win for him. But, there's easier challenges, Obviously, if you could have his pick, I'm not sure this was the organization, but hey, I think he can make something of it. So, yeah, I think that's about where it stacks up.
I give it a little bit higher than that. I give it like a B-.
I was just thinking maybe a C+, actually. Yeah, as I was like, damn, all that. I just listed a bunch of positives just to be like, it's a C. That sounds like me trying to spin a C coming back home from school.
Any case, I give it a B-. For no other reason than I honestly think it's a decent gig. I think it's an organization that if they get their act together, it could be a very solid one. It's a market where I think if you can have success, you have some real good stability there. Like you mentioned, it's existed for the past 2 years. So I think they're likely to exist for beyond just this year. Maybe not in the Atlantic League, but still existing matters for something. And beyond that, I feel like it's not the worst thing in the world. I think you could definitely make something happen here. So I think it's a B-. Like you said, it's not like a gold standard position. It's not Long Island. It's not, say, York or Lancaster, but it's far from the worst spot to land in the league.
So to recap, I just try to give it like a C, C-, and then listed a bunch of positives. You gave it like a B, B-, and we're just like, not the worst thing in the world. We suck at this. Hey, anyway, we should continue.
That's what happens. If you see a B- or a C+ on a paper, you're like, not the worst. This is good.
Hey, as we just went over, that's pretty good for me.
So, moving on to the other managerial hiring, that would be Greg Taggart to the Tri-City Valley Cats. He will take over for Pete Incaviglia. Obviously, we know Greg from his time in the American Association with Winnipeg in 2023, and Gary from 2005 to 2001. There was that 1 year gap in 22 where he's with the Giants organization. But he has had some time in the Frontier League in the past from 1995 to 2004. There was 1 year in there where he wasn't. He was in the Prairie League, I think is actually what it was called. It doesn't matter. It lasted 1 year, and that's what you need to know.
That sounds mad disparaging. Some Prairie League. Jesus.
Hey, if you look it up, it actually is the Prairie League. So, hey.
No, I feel you. It's just, boy, when you say like real dismissive, it's like the team disbanded. Boy, is that mid-90s indie ball for you. The Brainerd Bobcats. Goodness. That was one I missed when I was reviewing the resume. So, what are your thoughts?
Positives. Has a .526 winning percentage. That's good. 3 league championships, also positive. 1,300 plus wins, obviously good. Another positive from this is it's a 2-year contract with an option for a 3rd year.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That's all I got. Like, when I saw it on Sunday, I was just like, okay. I think my exact quote tweet on it was, oh. Just.
That's a choice. Yeah.
Lace them up, gentlemen.
I would say I'm trying to background my feelings on this as well. For reference, my feelings start with the expectation of what Tri-City had cooking, because they had high standards on who they even interviewed, who they showed interest in. A couple of people who we expected to be high on the list, experienced indie ball guys with success, did not even get interviews or have real interest shown their way. Mm-hmm. So it seemed like, all right, looking for like an MLB type of guy, looking for a big name, and especially with like the long break, like basically, I mean, the coaching carousel stopped spinning essentially. So the expectation was pretty high on what they were going to roll up with. And then, going Greg Taggart, like, look, we see what they like. They like the experience. Everybody references the experience, but the face value concerns I have are the fact that it's been 3 years without making a playoff. Came in 10th in the American Association 2021, 11th in 2023. Obviously the Giants didn't like something in the middle there. Didn't make the playoffs in 2019. So it's been 6 years since he successfully managed an indie ball team to a winning record. Beyond that, and I will preface this by saying, on the podcast I'll occasionally chirp somebody, but like with the takeaway of like, hey, everyone's got some positives. Twitter, you know me, I'll call out an organization, I'll call out a league, but I will rarely ever call out individual employees and baseball personnel, because I am saddled with the awareness of how fragile our jobs are. Part of that being personal experience, part of that just having friends lose jobs, having friends see friends lose jobs. It is something I stay cognizant of, and especially when somebody I don't know personally. I'm very aware. John Boy Media said something the other day on one of their pods. It was like, it's like literally a rule there, which is don't burn a bridge before you build it. So like, I'm very cautious with the things I say. Like, I'll put out, negatives about something, but I'll preface it with like, look, it doesn't mean anything. Like, we'll see. This was probably the only time I have just openly been like, that's a bad decision about somebody getting a job. And that is based on not only the on-field performance, but the sheer number of unprompted messages I've had and unprompted comments within conversations over the past 2 years that I would say over a dozen individuals have been like, yeah, don't work with Taggart. From the style of operating, the control style, the way he interacts with other teams, the attitude he has about himself and about others, the feel of sort of an entitlement, I guess would be a good way to say it. And generally, we have been over the conversation about what is a manager's role, especially in indie ball, and how in baseball it's really changed to being very much clubhouse management, and how, like, it sounds dumb, but by all accounts, he's just not for the boys. Like, the guys don't vibe with him well. Lace him up, getting the boys running. Like, it's just not an attitude that is befitting of a professional manager these days. And to see Tri-City, who is an organization you and I have so recently spoken highly of, and as like the city on the hill when it comes to like well-run indie ball organizations, this is one of those decisions that makes you step back and go, oh, that's right. They haven't been doing this very long. Like, they are still apt to make a real bad decision. And look, this could turn out. Maybe the debacle that was the season in Winnipeg will be a wake-up call, but things might change. It might run totally differently, but boy, did this one go, okay, take the under on all the win-loss things on Tri-City. Like, this could be a year. This could be a real learning experience for everyone involved.
I'll get serious on my actual thoughts on this. And like, again, I understand, and I'm going to echo a lot of what Ryan just said in the sense of, like, over that roughly the same amount of time, maybe a little bit less of the time, I talked to a lot of guys that were in Gary at the same time Taggart was there. And I talked to some Winnipeg guys recently, I won't mention who, and like, it was a mixture of, it's an experience playing for them, or playing for him, to just, you know, it's baseball, I'm happy to play. And it was never like, it was an enjoyable experience to be under him. And like the comment about running too, like that's one of the things I heard too, where like, you'd have, and this is no secret because I'm sure you've had dozens of players tell you the same thing I have, which is like, he'd have even pitchers running an awful lot. And it wouldn't be just like, oh, well, they'll run in like spring training or anything. Like, no, throughout the year. And it's like, well, first off, pitchers don't need to run. Like, they're not doing anything like that. Yeah, you need to field your position, but that doesn't really mean run. So I'm not sure why they're doing that and not spending more time actually like working on mechanics and like trying to hit their spots, maybe working on their pitches and
arm maintenance, arm health. It's 2023. All cardio and fitness should be done away from the team.
Yeah, like that's the thing too. Like I'm cool with doing like some cardio work. I'm cool with doing like stamina work and stuff for certain position groups. But even then, like baseball is not really a sport where you're constantly going, right? It's more, it's kind of like the sport of the army in the sense of where it's hurry up and wait, hurry up and wait, hurry up and wait. Where you have to be ready for the moment where all chaos breaks loose. So it's more about explosiveness than actual speed, for example. So yeah, I need my center fielder, for example, to be extremely athletic. I need my shortstop to be extremely athletic. But you're never really going that far. It's not like a sport like, say, football where, yeah, I want my receivers to be able to stay out on the field for like the whole series. I don't want them having to come off for 2 or 3 plays at a clip because I'm taking a weapon off the field. It's not a sport like hockey where it's like, yeah, there's a good chance you're going to get caught on the ice for like a 90-second shift when ideally they're 30 to 40 seconds. So you need to be able to go up and down the ice like that. Baseball's not that same kind of sport. It's more of a, you know, turn-based sport where, again, it's like, be ready to go at the drop of a hat, but I don't need you going the whole game. There's going to be moments in between where you're going to get that chance to rest and ease up and control the pace. Not as much with the pitch clock anymore, but still, it's not that same kind of constant flurry of action. So that whole method doesn't make much sense to me. Like, I don't think it's as high where you just go, why would they do that? Because you can see why that is. Like, even despite the fact that since 2018, or really 2019 on, yeah, it's been rough. A 40-win season, a 39-win season, and a 43-win season. Not really inspiring a lot of confidence, but if you look at it beforehand, you have a 59-win season, a 57-win season, a 52-win season, before you get to the first losing season, which is only 10 games under 500, which admittedly not good, but it's also not terrible. Not even 10 games under 500, 5 games under 500. My mistake. And then you got to go all the way back to, let's see, when was this last losing season before or after that? Really, it got to go back a ways. So, to the 90s, if I'm reading the Baseball Reference correctly and I'm not missing something. He had a non-winning season in 2012 and then followed up with a championship in 13. So like, I get it on paper. If you just look at it, like, won a lot of games. He's had 3 really bad seasons, but even still has a pretty sizable win to loss record. Then yeah, like it makes sense in that regard. But I kind of view it in the way of, you can be a good coach for a long time, and you can be an experienced coach, which is what I assume was the driving point behind this hire, was that he's an experienced guy. He's been doing it for 27 plus years. He knows what he's doing. But like, there's an expiration date on experience to a certain degree, in that the way your career starts and the winning process early on in your career may not be the same at the very end. I remember watching a whole series on Coach K, for example, and it became very clear right around the mid 20-teens that the same system that worked in the 90s and the aughts was not going to work anymore. So you had to take a different approach to coaching these newer players. And it feels like Taggart's in this position where he's never really changed that approach because it's always worked, so it'll work again. And it's like guys are not really going to do that anymore. And especially not in a time where you have a lot of other viable options in indie ball to go to. And it feels like the excuses you could make for the past losing seasons don't really work going forward anymore, right? Because in 2019, you could say, hey, he came off of 2-3 strong seasons. He's only 6 years removed from a championship, and we're also in Gary. That's a hard place to recruit to. You get a losing season every once in a while. Then 21, you can kind of say okay, there's a pandemic effect still. You have all kind of funky travel. It's hard to really see players in person. Again, you can make excuses there. Then 22, he goes to the Giants. 23, he comes back, and it's okay, well, look, it got better. And, it's his first year in Winnipeg. There's a learning experience there. A Canada effect, although I really think that isn't much of an effect, to be quite honest. And overall, you can start making some excuses here, but I get the sense of, from what I've heard from players and what I've heard from people in the know, that it's it's not the hire to make, right? And I always like to point out this. We know the kind of indie ball people and the whole baseball, ecosystem guys that we follow. And I assume the sickos that listen to this show follow a decent amount of the same people. How many people have you seen come out that are in this sphere and openly praise this hire?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's indicative of something. And also, the last point before I'll pipe down for a while, which is we all kind of when we think of really well-ran organizations, we all kind of overlook Winnipeg, despite the fact that Winnipeg is really well ran. They are extremely well done more often than not, and they've been around for a very long time. And if we're being honest, being the only Canadian team in the league, granted, it has a team in Fargo, North Dakota, so it's not that far, but still, being the only Canadian team kind of isolates you a bit. And they've had to go through a little bit of an up and down, but they've had a ballpark built for them in the center of Winnipeg. That's a notable accomplishment for an indie ball team. And by all accounts, they are well ran. I know any dealings I've had with them, they're well ran. So you look at it all like that. If a well ran organization like Winnipeg is willing to say, you know what, we're good after 1 year, I feel like that should say something, right? Where they, more than anybody else, would know what Greg Taggart's about, having been in a league with him for about 15 years. You would think they'd be the ones that would say, okay, we know his whole deal, and we'll get the results if we think it's there still. But then once they saw how close, they were like, no, this just isn't going to work. And then decided to cut bait and go to Logan Watkins instead. So...
yeah, I mean, with all that track record, to have one losing season and then be okay, we're out, is something that, doesn't...
It's a red flag.
Yes. And I would say, because, talked about the running thing a bit, and I just wanted to sort of circle back to justify some of that, because, it's okay, it's a lot to, obsess over having to go for runs, calm it down here, doing 2 days for high school football, but what the main crux of the matter is it is a long season. There's a lot of long bus rides. There's a lot of time. There's a lot of late nights. It's a lot of time where your rest is limited or it isn't quality. It's a lot of time at stadiums, at ball fields, all that. So whenever you see a manager still with professional ball players pulling cardio out, it's is that how we're choosing to spend our time right now? With the assumption being that, cardio should be done on your own time, during the season, before the season.
You should be in shape.
Seasons, that, yeah, it's
You
a
should
basic
show up in
expectation.
shape.
It's not college guys.
Yeah.
These are professionals. And we saw that in Staten Island with Alfonso. Like we've seen in a couple other things cited as number one wearing night. Saw it in Lexington this past year. Still haven't heard what their coaching situation is, but it's something that always it's one of those things where if I'm having a quick conversation, and this has happened on numerous occasions, and somebody like in the know, like we're just like at something like an event or just quick chat, whatever, and somebody maybe doesn't want to say everything, or doesn't have time to say everything, but someone comes up to be like, yeah, I had the boys out doing polls. Like, it's like, hey, what's up with Alfonso up in Staten Island way back a couple years ago?
Yeah.
And people were like, well, yeah, had the boys out running some polls. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, got it. Understood completely how the clubhouse works. It's just something to keep in mind. We're not sitting here and be like, he made the guys run. He doesn't deserve a job. That is crazy. What it is that is a prime and loud symptom of a bigger thing, which I think Winnipeg probably witnessed firsthand this year, and I think Tri-City might be about to witness as well.
Yeah.
The number of organizations who have made hires and have openly said to me, like, he wasn't even on our list, is eye-opening.
Yeah, and the thing is,
dude,
too,
this was a rough segment.
I mean, like, it's a little bit piley, but I mean, we are discussing the crux of the point here, which is it's a questionable hire at best. I mean, look at the team he had in Winnipeg this year. You had a reigning MVP in Max Murphy, who still had a good year, but not a great year. And, well, power perspective, he had a great year. If you go by batting average, he didn't have a great year, though, but, Any case, Dason Cruz was there as a 23-year-old rookie, had a very, very strong year in the American Association. Brian Martinez looked okay, but not, what you'd love to see there. And then it kind of drops off a bit from there. But overall, you still had a solid enough team that they should have contended for longer than they did. From a pitching perspective, they weren't deep, but they had some guys here. Enough guys that, again, they should have hung around a bit longer, at least in my opinion. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like Winnipeg was a team that was destined for the playoffs, and because of Greg, they didn't make it. No, that wasn't the case. This was not a playoff team in a league where, 80% of the teams make the postseason. But still, there were good players on that team, and they should have done better than a 43-win season. They shouldn't have been, the second, third worst team in the league? Second worst. And Gary, honestly, I feel like Gary was better than their record says. Even still, it was a noticeable gap there. So, to me at least, again, I understand his appeal to hire him. It just feels like there had to have been better options. And when Tri-City, an organization that we spoke highly of, comes out and it's like, we want a guy with MLB experience. We want a guy that is an experienced indie ball dude that's going to be here for a while. To then turn around and say, yeah, Greg Taggart, without really any MLB experience outside of that 55-game stretch with the Giants in 2022, if we're going to count that as MLB, which I don't really think that's how that works, is our guy. It's a bit underwhelming. From the way they were talking it up going into it, it almost feels like they were planning on going all right, we'll go get Backman now that he's open. And then something came up with that to where it fell through. And then they said, okay, well, we need to figure out something here. And Greg was the next best choice on the list.
Yeah, that's kind of the vibe.
And I also find it kind of interesting. You have a San Francisco State grad who is from California, and the most recent indie ball team in California chose to go with an ex-major leaguer too. That's just kind of interesting to me. Now, I don't know how close Greg was in the consideration. I don't think you'd want to go to the Pioneer League, but I just find that kind of interesting. You have a Bay Area dude that doesn't go to the team that's built for the Bay. But who knows? Maybe.
Yeah, I did not make that series of connections, honestly. So that was, kudos to you for putting some of that together there.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh.
Also, not to mention, his hometown is between the Bay Area and Sacramento, both of where the two Pioneer League teams are going. So, just saying, like, maybe that's like just trying to find stuff now. Which, if that was the case, then yeah, I'd own that. That maybe I'm stretching it out a little bit, but even still, I just find that to be a curious little oddity. So, yeah. That being said, let's try and just wrap that really quick, because all we have is, well, we have two other pieces that we'll get to quickly, but let's try to just wrap it with a positive spin here before we go on to those last two pieces. So, overall, though, I do think, while there is a lot to be concerned about, the experience is a factor here. I think that, well, I may not have the highest expectations going in. I think Tri-City still could be a playoff team, if for no other reason than the virtue of their division. Because realistically, look at the division right now and tell me which three teams are making the postseason. Quebec, obviously. We don't even know the rosters yet, but we know Quebec will be there.
Yeah, you got to assume Jackals aren't making a return trip at this point. And obviously, I have some limited faith in Sussex County because they seem like a bit of a mess already.
Exactly. You have New England that we're going to talk about in a minute. That doesn't inspire a lot of confidence. Three Rivers. That
yeah.
Yeah.
You got the Boulders. Boulders could
have confidence
could take the opportunity here.
Yeah.
They better if I'm them, they better make a move.
Yeah, I trust Tuve, Stanton, and all the player procurement development guys there. I trust them to get it done.
Mm-hmm.
So that's,
I'm with you there.
Yeah, that's two spots right there. That really means, like, okay, we ruled out Sussex. So it means that last spot's a fight between Tri-City and Ottawa.
Yeah, and I don't have, if I got to pick one, I'm going Tri-City. Yeah,
exactly.
That tracks.
So if this isn't a situation where, like, in the West, it's like, okay, it's just an absolute gunfight. So, you know, I in that sense think that even if they underperform from their past performances, they still aren't in a position where they're hopeless.
I'm thinking that through, but yeah, no, I'm so hesitant after all we said to be like, oh yeah, they're probably fine. But no, honestly, probably are. It's not.
Yeah,
it's a good time to have a bad year in the Frontier League East.
Exactly. Like, that's not to say that there won't be some surprises there, but like, first year professional manager, whatever the Jackals wind up doing, I don't think they've announced their manager yet. Or,
to be honest, I'm not 100% sure about their manager situation in Sussex.
Yeah,
different conversation.
Yeah.
Maybe we can follow up on that next week.
Yeah, so that's three open kind of question marks there. Three Rivers has their own issues, and thus that kind of again leaves you with, like, okay, Quebec, Rockland, and then like Bobby Brown's Ottawa team is like the real competition there. And like, even the year where they really kind of scared Quebec a bit, it took them getting really hot in August to get the job done and get in and then make that run. And that was just more or less a team that was the hot hand and gave Quebec everything they could handle. And Quebec handled it. So that's not some sort of insurmountable thing. And just to clarify the point on the West, Evansville seems to be pretty much a playoff team at this stage. Schaumburg, again, seems to be pretty much a playoff team in this stage. And then Washington usually is a postseason team. They just had a down year. So you can say from that org that if there was one organization in the West that would find what happened last year completely unacceptable, Washington would be that organization. So don't count on another year in the dumps there. So you have that. You have Gateway, who was an extremely strong team last year, and just, you know, the postseason didn't go their way, but postseason is such a crapshoot in baseball. That's going to happen. Joliet, who now has new ownership, maybe that spurs some sort of difference there. Lake Erie, who showed at points in the year that they could do something, but ultimately weren't good enough to stack up. And then there's, Windy City, which they're going to keep trying. So, the West would be a much harder road to climb on.
I think that's fair. Last one I'll say, and we won't even discuss, just a quick answer on this one.
Yeah.
Are you taking right now to win the East Division? You taking Quebec or the Field?
Quebec.
Yeah, right. I even put that over under at 3.5 games at this point.
Yeah, I mean, they're just so good.
A 3.5 game, gap over them in the rest of the division.
Because they're just so good, and New Jersey was a very good offensive team, and they managed to go from abysmal pitching to league average to I didn't even call it at points above league average, but on a whole, pitching wasn't going to hold them back. I'll just phrase it like that to keep it quick. And Quebec was kind of okay, you tagged us good on the one weird rain delay game. Now we're going to finish this. And then they kind of, took them over in the playoffs. As far as regular season goes, I mean, Quebec basically handicapped themselves the first 5 weeks of the year. And then we're oh yeah, by the way, we're just about to go sicko mode now. And
I mean, literally, I'm about to tweet it right now. It's looking at the Frontier League East, the first team behind Quebec that has I think improved at least somewhat or even held even to last year, finished 9 games behind them. Because Jersey, Sussex, and Tri-City all have question marks.
Yeah.
And they got the Boulders finally. Damn, dude.
Yeah. And and you know what? To help the case here, and again, then we'll actually go into the other Frontier League news story, so that way we don't run too long, because we have a long interview.
Yeah, because I got to wrap this thing.
Yeah. I'm looking at the Tri-City schedule right now, and I got to be honest with you. As far as difficulty goes, there isn't much here that says, problems. The one asterisk attached to that is, it's assuming New England is not, crazy good. Assuming, our whole previous 5-minute long conversation holds true, then, yeah. It shouldn't be too much of an issue for them to make the postseason.
Great.
Yeah. All right. So, other piece of Frontier League news. Chowderheads. They're no more. Because they've changed their name.
Right, hang a banner, baby. Undefeated run for the brand.
I'm not sure. They never won a game, though. So that
never asked. Just asked if they lost.
Fair. Chowderheads got knocked out, one could say, because now they are the New England Knockouts. They have changed the name of the team. The official statement, which is in the show notes, in case anyone cares to read it. You could go there, or you could just go to the Frontier League website. It's there, but we made it easier. Go to our website and click the link too. That'd be cool. But in the statement, it said, although our soon-to-be fans voted in favor of our team being called the Chowderheads, we heard loud and clear from our partners and others from Boston through Providence and all the way down to Hartford that we might be missing a key opportunity to name our team in honor of our host city, Brockton's storied history of producing some of the best boxing talent, in the world. Undefeated heavyweight champion Rocky Marciano alongside marvelous Marvin Hagler, who was trained by the prolific Brockton boxing trainers Pat and Goody Petronelli, were synonymous with the sport during their respective careers and were proud to hail from Brockton. We would be remiss to not acknowledge that, so we changed the team name. So we changed a team name that salutes the city of Brockton, acknowledges its role, defining their careers and dominance in the squared circle. That sounds like a lot of talk for. We realized that the box lacrosse team was going to be a problem.
Yo, as hesitant as I was to body bag the Greg Taggart situation, what are we doing? I'm so sorry. There are few moments where I will sit back and be like, why are we not running a team, dude? Because we sat here and we're like, Brockton, that's a choice.
Yeah.
And then we looked at the name options and we said, honestly, Chowderhead's kind of cool. Knockouts is probably the best option. But I mean, you can't possibly do Chowderheads because there's already a team with that name with a different spelling, literally a pro sports team. And I did that in one Google search.
Yeah.
And then they chose that name. And I said, well, I'm sure they've addressed that. I'm sure they figured that out. And I was like, I'm a little bit surprised, but I'm sure, they've handled it because I think I'm trying to find my exact words. I think I said, I mean, they're professionals. I assume they Googled it with like a sort of like, because they'd be idiots not to. I have addressed this already. And here we are getting bodied by a box lacrosse league, which I've said before off the pod. I'll say it on the pod. Box lacrosse is the biggest letdown of a sport because lacrosse is exciting and it's fast moving, and then you put it on a small field, it should be even better. And they just like walk and sub out every change of possession. Embarrassing. And then it's on hiatus, and they still put that whole brand in a body bag. The wasted money, the wasted resources. We've talked about it before that this felt rushed, and obviously it is. What are we doing? I tweeted something I think about a week ago about like it feels weird that Chowderheads don't have a website. When you Google them, you still only get the lacrosse team. Like, what is happening? And then, so this isn't a surprise, I guess. It's just a surprise that we are in 2023, and after all we've seen, we're still getting people who are not qualified starting up organizations. Like, I've heard about this ownership group being better, whatever, but like, put an adult in charge. Put someone who's done it before. The reason that I'm more confident in Gastonia having a successful stretch of years here is because they actually have, from what reports are, a real owner coming in who knows what they're doing and who has launched other team brands and knows how to operate. How is this a pitfall how is this something that you deal with? Like, that's what, sorry if I'm a little heads up on this one. I'm
I
mad
mean, like, the thing is, though, they
two
have...
idiot podcasters got it. How do you miss this?
Like, that's the thing, like, they used an ownership group that's already in the league. And, like, our exact wording was, Chowderheads is by far the best. It's the most minor league baseball name possible, and you could sell a lot of merch with this if you do it right. But then as soon as you brought up the box lacrosse league during the whole segment there, we were like, that's going to be a problem. And I was like, you still roll the dice on it. You see if you can't work it out. But you have like, yeah, you probably aren't going to be able to use it, but like, damn, it'd be great if you could. And like, out of all the other names, they all kind of suck. And so then when they announced, I was like, okay, well, that's the best one. And then we both went through the whole situation of, yeah, but they probably figured it out. They probably, either confirmed that hiatus league is well and dead, and they were able to either, buy any sort of the branding or licensing materials they need on the cheap, or it just kind of now is floating in the ether and they're good to go, or the chowder as opposed to chowder was that much of a difference where they were going to be able to float and skate on it. But we both were pointing out too all along that like, it's definitely rushed. You announced in the end of September. Then in November you have a name, but no logo and no website really to speak of. And then, like, you do absolutely nothing outside of, like, announcing your manager, and that's about it. There's no real social media presence. There's no sort of anything. And now this is where we're at here. And again, it's like, if we were able to find this and go through, like, the pros and cons of each thing, you would think an ownership group that owns another one of the teams in this league and had a viable brand already attached to the city would have been able to see all these problems coming. But they didn't. And here we are. And now we're in a position where we have to change this at the last minute. There's still no logo. So there goes any remote shot of having Christmas sales, which I gotta imagine impacts ticket plans, merchandising, and overall general appearance. And we're at the stage where we can't just audible off of this team for a year, because again, it'd be 3 years of a traveling team, and it's such short notice that we gotta go forward with it. Now, that's not to say that just because you have to change the team name early on, everything's bad. I mean, I think we all could collectively agree it would have been in everyone's best interest for, say, a Atlantic League team based out of Kentucky to have audibled out of their most recent name change early on, so that way we cannot have the abomination that is the counterclocks. But still, it is indicative of you couldn't do the branding correctly. Then why the hell should we think that you're going to do everything else right? And it also kind of speaks to me here that you opted to go for what's essentially a Can-Am League vet that was coaching D3 ball. Like, I'm not going to disparage the dude for what he's done so far, but like, he hasn't coached pro ball. And
there's a long track record at this point of failures for guys who jump right into indie ball managing.
Yeah.
It's just so much to take on, especially when teamed up with a new organization without any internal, real significant internal guidance on how to do this.
Exactly. And like, yeah, sure, some of the guys that are running this team, the knockout team, have experience running the Brockton Rock Summer League team, but managing summer ball and coaching summer ball and running a summer ball team is so vastly different from running a professional team that plays international games. Like, just straight up, the visas alone are a totally different thing.
We're about to have an interview air with the person who was the first employee outside of owners hired by the new team in Oakland. And what do? They grab a baseball operations guy.
Yeah.
With experience. What? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just, if you can't, it is, there are a few mistakes you can make that simultaneously broadcast. Not only are we not good at handling the largest of details, the broad strokes details, we are also not good at handling the small details, because we couldn't handle what it takes for a Google search and some backgrounding and going in the proper order of getting things done. We're assuming that's what the order was. I'm sure if pressed on it ever, they'll be like, no, it was because we wanted to pay tribute to the community and the local boxing history. Okay. We know what happened here.
Yeah.
It's just...
And it's one of those things, too, where it feels like the original name got announced because they're like, yeah, we're pretty sure it'll be fine. And they had a deadline to meet, and they're like, all right, just run with it. And if it's a problem, we'll deal with it later. And then it became a problem. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, boys, if you already missed the deadline, not the end of the world, just to kind of ignore it and miss it by a couple other weeks and make sure that all the T's are crossed and I's are dotted. Being 2 weeks late on a deadline is way, way better than having to just reverse course less than a month after announcing your branding. It is
Imagine
troubling.
How difficult it is and how many things you need to go right for a successful brand launch. And to after failed teams in the area, to illustrate legitimacy to the fan base and then have this happen. It's I hate to say it. I mean, all right, we ended the last talk on a little over under. And a little bit, what do you think? Do you think in 3 years, is there a team? So we'll say off season after 2026, is there a team in Brockton, Massachusetts for the Frontier League?
Opening day 2027, is there a team in Brockton, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm inclined to say yes, just because I think of it like this. Gastonia didn't pay anybody for damn near a full year. Mm-hmm. And they lasted for 3 years. So could they get through 3 years? Yeah, I think they could. Now, if you ask me, are they a stable and healthy organization in 3 years? That's a very different question. If I had to put it, if you were asking me to set the over-under number on the amount of seasons that they play in the Frontier League, I would probably go 5.5 as that number. Assuming that this is a sign of larger things to come, which, quite frankly, everything so far has kind of given that appearance.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So, I will just curtail it with one thing, which is to say this could honestly just be a genuine mistake, and they could have actually had a large amount of pushback from local businesses as they were trying to get those kind of like marquee sponsors for the billboards, for the in-between innings, things like that. And they were really like, hey, we'd be a lot more apt to go for this if you could throw a boxing connection in there. We don't want to have like this kind of juvenile attachment to our team. That could be it, but I don't know. That seems like trying to help them out here.
I just think it had to come down to the fact that there's already a professional sports team that, even if there is no legal issue, which I would be surprised if there isn't, there's already no sports team that comes up when you Google your team name. Mm-hmm. Like, that's a tough scene. And honestly, they have a pretty good brand. Like, I like their logo. So it's an uphill battle either way. I think that. I don't see a world where that isn't it. As though it's a surprise, and that was what they chose.
The last thing for me is just that first line in the press release where it's, although our soon-to-be fans voted in favor of our team being called the Chowderheads. So acknowledging the majority of fans wanted Chowderheads of the options they were given. Mm-hmm. We heard loud and clear from our partners and others. That's what gets me. Because that implies to me that it implies something here, that they had outside pressure to change it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like maybe I'm making a mountain out of a molehill, but
I just don't really read too much into the whole name the whole statement about the name, because I don't see any reality where this wasn't just based out of the issue. There's already another team with that name.
I mean, like, that's the thing, though. I think that's entirely it, though. That they are the others.
Yeah, okay, fair. Yeah. I see you. Okay.
Yeah.
My bad.
Like, I feel like that's their way of kind of, like, casually putting out there, like, yeah, our legal people are telling us that maybe we should reconsider this. And the others in the community are saying, hey, until you have that legal thing about the name cleared up, we can't make a financial commitment to you because we don't want to have ourselves attached to this. And it'd be like June 30th and all of a sudden, hey, we got to take down all this branding and all these pamphlets we hand out in game and all of these posters that are up all over Brockton that has, key sponsor logo next to Brockton or New England Chowderheads logo down, because as it would turn out, there's a court order saying we're not allowed to use that anymore because of copyright infringement.
I mean, and the other thing too is we've been so verbal already about saying this.
Yeah.
And I've seen a couple New England Knockout staff members. I genuine mistake on that one.
Yeah.
That are actively on Twitter during the same window, and none of them, even in our DMs, dropping a correction or an FYI. It's one of those things too.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I mean, we're basically putting out there, like, dude, this is what happened. And for no one to even be like, actually, and like even try to sell it, it's kind of like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're on here.
The Pioneer League, because they have a tryout.
Nice.
In fact, they have two of them, one in February, one in April. The February one is from the 9th through the 11th. Don't forget that date. And then the other one is from April 16th through 18th. First one is in Davenport, Florida. Second one is in Scottsdale, Arizona. There'll be a 12-person draft at the end of the camp. Yakkertech and Baseball Cloud Analytics provided to all players in attendance. You have to be over 18 with less than 3 years experience as a pro, as defined by the Pioneer League. Link to that and the registration link in the show notes on the website, indieballreport.com. Travel and lodging is not covered, as is standard for these types of tryouts. The overall cost is $600 to attend. So, make of that what you will.
There you go. Go baseball.
All right, so we went ahead, reached out, got a hold of Tyler Petersen, the assistant general manager of the Oakland Ballers. He came on, talked about the Ballers a bit, talked about the East Bay community, and really went into some detail about why the branding was selected, what they're hoping to accomplish, what's defined as a success, what's going to be defined as a long-term success, and really anything pertaining to Oakland baseball, and really talking about what losing the A's means to the community as a whole. And honestly, I thought it was a very good interview. I thought it was a very strong interview. And I think it is rather insightful for a lot of people, and answers at least a handful to most of the questions we had going into this, and that we discussed a couple weeks back when we were talking about the announcement of the team, and kind of shed some light on some of those areas.
Yeah, I was really, full disclosure, I was the one to reach out to Tyler. Hey man, you're a pod. I don't care where I reach out to. So yeah. I did not do nearly as much back research as I probably could have before asking the question about his availability. But it really did turn out to be like a great person to talk to about this, because not only is he a local native, an A's fan growing up, he's on the baseball operations side. So he has the unique perspective of somebody who's trying to build a baseball team in this unique environment of a new team in a league with already its own like roster complications when it comes to the roster restrictions. And he's also on the media side. So he sees the branding and marketing strategy going on, and he's been in very early in the process with Oakland and an ownership team. So he had a lot of very cool insight on just about every side we could really get into with him. Even the few things where he was kind of like, well, I'm not quite ready to give that away quite yet, but you'll have to keep watching. So I'm really glad that we brought him in. It turned out to be a good call by me. I am just pointing that out because when you make one good call out of every 10 calls, you gotta make it loud. So I'm just gonna say, good job, Ryan. Way to follow your instincts and not do nearly enough research until right before the interview.
See, that's why Ryan's on this show. He's just so goddamn humble. So we need that to keep us
humble
grounded.
And firing shots aimlessly, baby.
Yeah. So I guess without any further ado, we'll throw it over to the interview with the assistant general manager of the Oakland Ballers, Tyler Petersen. This week, we welcome someone to the show that is no stranger to the Pioneer League. It is the assistant general manager of the newest Pioneer League franchise, the Oakland Ballers. Welcome to the show, Tyler Petersen. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on, gentlemen. It's been fun to interact with you over the years. Nice to finally sit down.
Yeah, appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come on. Obviously, very busy time getting a team up and running. And I'm sure we're going to have a bunch of questions about Oakland, the team itself, and everything in between. So I guess we'll open up with the obvious question of what was the draw to bring you from Rocky Mountain to Oakland?
Yeah, so I was approached by our owners, the Oakland owners, right at the conclusion of the Rocky Mountain season. So I was with the Rocky Mountain Vibes. I was working as their director of baseball ops, and we had a really successful season with a great group of players. We made the playoffs for the first time, best winning record, first time with a winning record during the season, and we got bounced from the eventual champion Raptors. And pretty much right after that, like the next day, I got a call from Brian, who's one of the two co-founders. And he was telling me about this idea. I had heard that it was, sort of being bandied about in different operator meetings. Yeah. In fact, the first time I remember we had these weekly operator meetings in the Pioneer League. I missed 1 week, late in the season, and I jumped back on, and someone was talking in the meeting. They're going, well, with Oakland, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what are they talking about Oakland? Yeah. And to me, I thought they were talking about like Oakland County, Wyoming, like someplace I had never heard of. Right? So I texted my GM and I go, what do they mean by Oakland? And so he's like, it looks like they're talking about an expansion team in Oakland. And the first thing I thought was, good God, the bus rides. Which actually will not be a problem because we will not be making any bus rides out of the state. Okay. You'll be flying. But I was approached by them, and this is where I'm from. I live in the East Bay. I'm a lifelong A's fan, lifelong Bay Area sports fan, and this is my home. So it was an opportunity for me to come back home, which is great in a full-time capacity. And the more I had a lot of questions, first of all, because I didn't know who the founders were. I later found out that they're both guys who are from the East Bay, who are A's fans, who are doing this almost, being inspired from the sell movement with what's going on with the A's to start a team. So I understood the vision as they explained it to me, the scope, that they wanted this to be something that would be in Oakland for a long time. And for me, it was a matter of, well, this is an opportunity for me to affect change in my community, and not knowing how I felt about a new team coming in, because the A's haven't officially left. And if there's anyone that can screw up what's happening with the Vegas negotiations, I would trust the brain trust of the A's to screw it up. So who knows? But I knew that, listen, this was going to happen with me or without me. And I thought this would be something I would want to be part of, something I could influence. And like I said, have a positive impact on my community as being part of this. So that's how I got onto the project. And officially I came on October 1st.
Oh, okay. So it's definitely been in the works for quite some time here. And it was a very well-guarded secret then, that it took probably till like 2 or 3 days prior to the announcement for us to even find out, like, okay, there's going to be some sort of major announcement from the Pioneer League on Tuesday. And like I fought hard to find that. I was
very impressed with the amount of people that were involved and had to be involved beforehand to make sure the launch was a success, and for everyone to keep their mouth shut. It was really amazing that everyone sort of kept it under wraps. So we got to have the kind of impact on the announcement that we wanted.
Yeah, no, it definitely worked out, because seeing the community involved, local government involved, everybody involved in it, it really made me think like, okay, this has a really good chance of succeeding. If you have local government on your side, you have obviously a large movement behind it. That's always a really solid building block to go from. So I suppose the question is, what's the long-term outlook here? Obviously, we're going to talk a lot year one in this interview, but I do want to know, like, what's the plan here to go year 1, year 2, year 3? Like, let's just talk first 3 years, like long-term outlook with this community behind you, assuming everything goes well.
Yeah, assuming everything goes well. The first, the easy thing for me to say is, I don't know. Now, the more, more pointed answer is year one, whatever we have year one will be, a temporary facility. So look at Laney College right now. It's a 1-year-old playing surface, turf, really nice. Yeah. Laney College was going to be where the A's were going to have their COVID site. So it's, at one point was determined to be, of quality enough that a major league team was going to use it. It's not a minor league stadium. So we are going to have to bring in, a couple thousand seats, create some fan experience areas, whatever it might be, to bring it up to the standard of, something around, what the other Pioneer League teams have. I was working in a stadium last year that was a AAA stadium and sat 8,500. So, we're not going to get to that kind of building in year one.
Yeah, very, very different dynamic. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And we're going to have a lot of things that, in year one, we have to be able to say, okay, that is a year 2 thing, or that's a year 5 thing. Like, we have to figure out what has to get done now between, basically December and June, which is a very aggressive, timeline. But we also have folks who are very aggressive themselves and wanting to get this done, and having that support, and the thumbs up from not just the local community, but the local government and everyone that we have to sort of check off and make sure everything works. We shouldn't have really any other problems other than just making sure we hit our timelines. But if you're wondering what years, let's just say 2 through 5 look like, it could be a lot of things. I mean, what does a permanent baseball stadium for the Oakland Ballers look like? I'm not sure yet. It could be a lot of things. And, the A's situation, how does that tie in? What is going to happen? Are they going to be the Vegas A's by 28? right now, that's the earliest they can have a stadium done.
Yeah.
What is there, you know, at least in the Coliseum? I mean, there's a lot of things we could talk about as far as, you know, what things look like right now. Luckily, I don't have to think about that.
Yeah.
So my main issue right now is putting on the field a team that that we want to win a championship in our first year, which is a tall ask anyway.
Yeah.
But for the folks who are going to come to the game who are used to Major League Baseball style of play, we want to try to get as close as we possibly can with how we recruit.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely want to get into that player end of it, because I do wonder, like, being in Oakland, kind of being far away from some of the other divisions, or all the other divisions and teams outside the one sister team that's going to be coming in there, if that's going to be some sort of an advantage to have for playing like home games if you get to the postseason and playing home games there, having that travel advantage, that's definitely something I want to get into, because I'm curious to see how that's going to work, because it's got to be interesting there, because I guess it's actually a fair question to jump off of, because now it came into my mind. Are other teams, and this may not be something that you're really able to answer, but are other teams able to fly into Oakland? Because I assume flight's going to be the main option here for Oakland traveling to the other teams on their schedule that are not the other California team. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think this information is out there in order for this to work, that, you know, the other teams have to fly in, and that this is part of, you know, when you talk about an agreement to have a team in California, what kind of associated costs come with that? The ability to make sure teams can come here is something that you know, falls to us as something we need to, you know, make sure that can happen. I think you saw with the Pioneer League's announcement that they are looking at a Pacific West division.
Yep.
And that is something which I don't know how long it will take for that to become a real thing, but you know, in that scenario, there would be less flying in, you know.
Yeah.
But for the first year, we are going to be playing a lot of games in California, that's for sure. I think if you look at our schedule, we have 30 games against Team 12, and I got to be careful, just keep saying Team 12 when I'm talking. But we are going to make, I believe right now, 5 flying road trips. We're going to bring in probably about the same 5 or 6 away teams to here. Now, I think there might be a team or two that will elect not to fly. I'm not sure why, because, you know, I don't see why, but yes, the answer is yes. The other team will be.
All right, so that must suck. If you have jet lag and then have to go play a playoff game afterwards, that's going to be fun for some teams. But
well, I think if you're talking about competitive advantage, the one thing that I think that we have the competitive advantage over is we play at sea level. We don't play at. If you think about Rocky Mountain, Rocky Mountain's 65-31. It's 7 feet 100 higher than Coors, and that was something which, when I was thinking about building a team, I took into consideration. I'm taking consideration the elevation of 0 now. I mean, we have a estuary that runs right past Laney College. We are probably one of the closest teams to the sea without being Oracle Park right on the bay. So you're going to see a team with a lot of speed, defense, and pitching, because we think that we can actually have an ERA under 5 in the Pioneer League for the first time ever.
There you go.
That's a lot for me to think on. I'm going to toss to Ryan, so that way I'm not just having dead air. So Ryan, why don't you take it from there while I chew on a Pioneer League team that's at sea level?
Yeah, that is actually a very interesting thing to point out. My number one thing that I was thinking about with that was, I did get a lot of feedback from guys on other clubs talking about, you know, they're excited to they know for a week they won't have a bus ride. So that's a win for them. So it's, you know, there's some benefit for the teams traveling to Oakland, but, also it's interesting. Thinking of the selling point now of a practically long plus ride-less season in the Pioneer League if you're playing on one of the California teams, but that's a different conversation entirely. What has piqued my interest is that Pacific West division that you're looking at. How much is already filled? Like, how is that going to work this year? Are you able to talk about that, or is that still sort of being kept under wraps for now? Because I'm thinking, is that getting its own section of the standings, or is that sort of playing within both divisions? Because a 2-team division does seem like a quite an arrangement. So I'm just fascinated how that's going to work from a baseball perspective.
Well, I think what that is that's a future project. I think is what the league's
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't sure because I'll be honest, League's Wikipedia already's got penciled in that West. So I wasn't sure how soon they wanted to get that into sort of effect. But
well, I think you're looking at the first two teams now. And then if you're, let's talk conjecture, and I can talk about this freely because the great thing is I don't know. So I can, I can say things and not get in trouble for them because I don't know if this is what's going to happen or not. But, you look at the West Coast, if Oakland, Team 12, are successful, and I don't even know if it necessarily is predicated on our success, but that Pacific West Division could be, 4 to 6 to 8 teams only on the West Coast, and therefore not necessitating flying travel to the mountains. I don't know where the league is going to take that. I think the idea of that is something that they're interested in. I'm pretty sure the league will go divisionless this year.
Okay.
With 12 teams. That is my current understanding. I don't know if that is
okay.
What is happening, but my current understanding is that we're going divisionless.
Okay. That does track as again, I'm way too far back into the baseball logistics than most well-adjusted humans would want to be. But I was thinking about how are they going to, because they can't split the two teams out of the same division. So it would have to be some serious shuffling if they were to go that direction. And part of it, I was like, maybe divisionless, but I don't know. That would make sense. It's fascinating.
I know
I
know the 3 division scenario has been bandied about as well. Whether it's, my own, being too much into my books and my work that I should know, or I just don't have the most updated information available to me. I know that both the 3 division setup was talked about, but to maintain the halves, that's a little bit harder to do. So we are going to have the halves system, and it's a system that works well. And so I think from everything I understand, not like this is any big breaking news if it's not out there already, but I think the divisionless setup is what we're looking at.
Okay. That actually answers multiple questions. So, hey, nicely done with that one. Whether that was breaking news or not, I appreciate the clarity there. You mentioned a couple times already, like, if there's a successful year one or assuming all goes well, what, when you sort of game this out, what does a successful year one look like? What both in, is there a set of goals already established or, some boxes that they're, the organization's hoping to check? And from the baseball operations side, how much does that involve you and, putting at least a product that is recognizable to people who maybe haven't seen indie ball at this point? There's a lot to be balanced there. So I'm wondering really where the priorities lie and how much weight is being put on certain things.
I think success for Oakland is success for Oakland, right? Mm-hmm. So if the city succeeds in our first year, if the fan base succeeds in the first year, then we're going to succeed. We have, great community partners. We have a great team, which the Oakland Roots are a soccer team, which also played in Laney College for a number of years. And they're very community centric. A lot of the notes that they hit are ones we similarly want to hit. I've been to Roots games. They're a ton of fun. We want to bring that same kind of atmosphere that fans are used to from something like that, or really from the Coliseum to our ballpark. So let me put it this way to you. I think we know what the financials are going to look like after year one, and we're okay with that. And our success is not predicated on the dollars and cents. Okay. And we're not really in the dollars and cents game. If it was, both of our co-founders are from the East Bay. I'm from the East Bay. Don Wakamatsu's from the East Bay. Our manager's from San Francisco. Some of our part-time employees are from here. We're all invested in making this a success for the community. And that'll come into its come into ways like youth baseball programs, other things which you don't normally associate with independent baseball. We want to operate this differently than I think more along the lines of what a Major League Baseball team does with community partnerships and things along those lines than what an indie ball team does. And if our co-founders were two guys who saw Oakland as, a great opportunity to put a team there and to make money, we probably wouldn't succeed, right? If it was just two guys who aren't from the area and don't really understand how this place works or what people want. But they are from here. They are part of, the bigger, movement you can say within Oakland baseball. And we've had baseball here since the early 1900s of the Oakland Oaks. And we're trying to, continue the legacy of baseball in Oakland. And there certainly is a narrative around Oakland, whether it's baseball or politics or however it gets into, that we want to push back against because we don't think it's fair. And we do think that this city is a very prideful city with a ton of culture. There's more languages spoken in Oakland than any other single area in the United States. So we want this to be successful for the community, and if it is, I think that speaks to long-term success. For me, we have to win. We have to win,
right?
Because if we don't, one, I'll beat myself up over it, which I'll hate to do. But we have a community that is dying to have something to cheer about. And as an A's fan, I'm almost used to losing now in the last couple of years. And a lot of folks are used to losing. We want folks to get used to winning. This is, a place where our parents grew up with the A's winning 3 straight World Series, being in the playoffs every year, the Raiders always in an AFC championship game. That is the Oakland that our previous generation was used to. And that's one we want to bring back.
Mm-hmm. And it does seem like, and from what you're saying as well, I mean, it might be a city of fans that maybe have been hurting for some love from their teams for a long while, but it definitely seems like one where and you can correct me if I'm simplifying a little bit, but if you show them love, they'll show you love back for the most part. And
100%.
That's not everybody. There's plenty of markets where you can be as good to them as you want to be, and they will still pretend you don't exist, which, boy, high school flashbacks. But, the definitely, that's why I at least, it's always daunting with a new organization, but that is where I saw with Oakland, like, at least, like, this makes sense. It just at a ground level of this is a fan base that would, return good things to an organization that shows them good things and the love.
Maybe you guys would know better, but I mean, the A's are the only team I know who have I don't know what the right word is, but almost like unionized fan groups, right? So the Oakland 68s, almost like soccer ultras. I can't really know any other MLB team that has fans who have fan clubs like that. And it was super important for us in the pre-announcement days and months that we already engaged with them on what would make this a success. And once we knew that this is something that they would back, I don't think we would have been able to do it without their support. So for us, I mean, there's things like a fan bill of rights. There's the question of what is the role of fans in sports at large. That there's some sort of almost sort of strangely societal questions that are sort of being answered with this baseball team.
Right.
So it is about that, though. I mean, that is the core of why we exist. We exist mostly because the fans took baseball into their own hands. They sold out the Coliseum on a reverse boycott. They have this movement that inspired our co-founders to start the team, and that is the avenue in which we will sort of operate this team.
And I'll kick back to you in a second there, Nick, but you just reminded me because you talked about what is, I think, an extremely noteworthy point of, turning a profit, and the amount is not exactly what is seen as success or fail for year one, and how this is not a money focused start to things. But what did catch me in the announcements is, it seemed like a unique ownership structure, or at least funding structure, where it seemed like there's a lot of different parties who have backed this? And I don't know how much is financial backing and how much is, just, yeah, I support this. But would you be able to sort of, any of the unusual, arrangements that make up this sort of ownership group, or where the backing for such an undertaking is coming from? Would you be able to sort of enlighten us on that one? Because that's one where it was mentioned offhand, but at the time, that was not the interesting part of what was going on. So nobody really focused on it.
I might be able to, because I'm not sure that I have too much insight into that part of it, because that was, pre-Tyler days, let's say. But I mean, I think when I talk about finances, we certainly believe that this is, not just going to be a great baseball team for the community. This obviously will be a business that we think will be, like any other startup, you're going to have to spend money to make money, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're, eventually this will be a highly investable, or however you'd like to put that business. I am not a money guy. I don't know what the terms are, so
you're fine.
We'll just leave it at that.
That made sense. Yeah.
All right. So, what started with two high school friends, Paul and Brian, as co-founders, they did a lot of legwork to get folks involved. I don't know exactly the people who are involved, but a lot of people who are local, a lot of people who companies. I think it was put poetically, sort of doctors and lawyers and grandmothers and when the announcement. And I don't know those people personally, but we want this to be that sort of a setup. We will eventually announce how fans can get involved with crowdfunding to be owners of the team. So these are the things we want to do as part of this. Again, giving fans and folks who want to be involved in that kind of capacity, the ability to be.
Interesting. All right, that's definitely going to the unique side, but I like that there's at least, while there's an understanding that year one might not be the year where everyone's like, look at all the money we've made. It's more of a year of investing in the community and what's going on, that this does seem to be structured in a way where there will be a successful business as well with this baseball team.
Absolutely. And I think the real point I want to make is if we were concerned about how much profit we were making in year one, then I think we've already failed. Because then I think if we would not be true to what we are trying to do. And I think rather seeing it as the reality and having guys, Paul and Brian, who have had very successful careers, who have done startups, who have, started and sold companies and all this kind of stuff that I don't understand. And they, I was, it's funny. I was their first hire, which, I was very honored about, but, they were told more or less from the league, make sure you get good baseball people in. So apparently I was a baseball person, which I thought was, funny, okay. But they've entrusted me and Don and Micah to handle the baseball. The creative side, the business side, it's being taken care of. We're hiring, our general manager, I believe extremely soon. I'm not sure exactly when this come out. Might have already been announced by the time this comes out, but they're full steam ahead on making sure that everything on the business end, the facility end, the anything that doesn't have to do with the on-field product is being taken care of, and it's gotten great support.
Nick, do you want to jump in with anything, or?
Yeah, I thought you were going to
let me just let this thing spiral, because I'll do it.
I know. Yeah, I was just on for the Jack Kelly interview. I remember, but more back to the point of talking about Oakland. For generally just a discussion around the city and the team itself, it feels a lot like the culture around this team is almost that of like European football, where it really is a community-based effort. It is a community team, and a team where the community will have the largest say, more so than some of the people that you would think would, like key decision makers in the organization, that the community is going to say, we would like to do this, and that's going to be really a response to it. And this is probably the obvious question, but was that kind of the goal in mind from the onset, where it's going to be, all right, we saw what the A's did to this community, where they just kind of said, we're going to do what we want, whatever that is, you're going to have to live with. And you said, yeah, we're going to take the opposite approach of that. it's maybe a bit of an obvious question, but was that kind of European soccer mentality almost like the way it was planned from the start?
I mean, that's not a bad comparison, but I mean, you talk about, what we saw they did it to us. Yeah. They did it to me. Yeah. So, I didn't have to try to understand what someone else was thinking. Yeah. I'm not extreme, where I, try taking my own hands and try to do something else with it. But, do you know that the A's have not held a fan fest in years? Like there is no, there's no fan engagement at all, on our side. So this was going to be fans first. It always was going to be fans first. The fans, don't want things dictated to them. They want to, cause I think when we think about, it's gonna be so much fun and we're going to have this section and the fans can do this here and the Coliseum is cool. And if we told fans, you're going to be crazy over here in this section, it's for them to decide what they want to do. When we talk about when you talk about European soccer ultras, those kind of fans group, the Oakland 68s, that is our version of them. Yeah. So if you're asking, is it going to be like that? Yes, I think so. Have you guys ever been to the Bay Area by any chance?
I have not. I can't say I have. No.
Okay.
Not for any time other than work, essentially. Yeah. Didn't get to experience it.
I mean, we are, among other things, like I was saying, one of the biggest melting pots in the country. We have a lot of cultural pride out here. We love things that, we can support that support us. We've got, I grew up with, a ton of folks, demographically that, I've lived in Idaho and Colorado the last couple of years. So those have been big changes for me. Yep. And, servicing a place like Oakland and building an organization around Oakland is really different the way you want to structure it. It's more than just a family night out. It is actually something of civic pride for A's fans and now for B's fans.
Yeah, I was going to say, that actually kind of brings me right into my next question, was how was the branding really decided? I'm not sure how much or when the branding was decided on, but Ballers always just kind of struck me as an interesting name. It's not really what you'd expect from a sports team to necessarily be called. I imagine there was somewhat of a desire to be able to have that kind of shorthand, like athletics is A's, Ballers is B's. I imagine there was some thinking like that went into it, but I'd be curious if you knew anything about the decision process for branding wise. If you could go into that a little bit.
Yeah. So I'll say first for the, we'll start with the name. Yeah. So the name, is actually a personal story for Paul Friedman, one of our founders, and Brian as well. They were toying around with the idea of bees. They sort of had the idea of that, from everything that I understand from what they've told us. And there's actually a couple articles out there that go into this, but I'll just tell it again here. Paul had a friend, I believe his name is Bobby Winslow, who, he grew up with and passed away, right after college. And so, he had always called himself a baller, and Paul was telling us that he referred himself as a baller. So, Paul's actually named the team in his honor. And it's sort of very well tied in together with the fact that if it was going to be the Ballers, it could also be the Bees. So it's got a personal touch for Paul. It's got, obviously a very recognizable community, touch as well. As far as the branding around it, we've got a great designer. I don't know if you've ever seen the Warriors town jerseys, which
yes, I have. Yeah.
Black with the tree. So that was designed by a guy named Dustin Cannellan, who, we got to design our Bees logo. So, it was someone who, knows the area and understood what we're trying to get out of this. And so that's where all of our branding comes from. Otherwise was, one of our local, sort of big time designers around here. So, it's funny because on launch, I was expecting about, half people to say, oh, this is great. This is awesome. About half to say, this is not a major league expansion franchise. What do I care? And really, it was really like 98.5 to 1.5 of this is awesome. And then some guy who I also understand who's like, hey, I don't want a minor league replacement. And that's fine. And I think, the what we're trying to do is serve two kinds of people. One, the folks who have now rejected the A's because the A's have rejected them. We can be a new team for you. And also those folks who see, kind of like I do, that A as a family crest of growing up and going to games and, doing it with your dad or whatever it was. And you can't really let that go. Well, what we're asking is just for you to make space in your heart for another team that loves you back.
Yeah. I definitely get that. Still, I get that sense of having your team kind of gone and then going through many years as a Met fan of incompetent ownership and management. But, Ryan, the Phillies fan, is shaking his head going, yeah, I enjoyed those years. But regardless.
One thing, actually, if I could jump in, one thing I find funny on that note is when you look at the Bay Area, there's only one team in its history, really, of the current teams that was born here, and that was the Raiders. Everyone else is from somewhere else. Giants from New York, A's from Philly, then Kansas City, Warriors from Philly, Sharks, Minnesota North Stars. I mean, whatever it might be, that the Raiders were sort of only the ever Oakland team. But if you want to talk about how much each one of those teams means to the area now, it's like ripping out the New York Yankees to us if they were going to move to Hartford, Connecticut or something. But it's that kind of same feeling now for us.
And because realistically, it's not like geographically that far, but it's also far enough where it's not your team anymore. It's discernibly not your team anymore. And just the process is really the heartbreak there. And I guess the heartbreak is really what's still generating the emotion that really makes, the response you've gotten so potent to the announcement of the Ballers.
Yeah, I think you see the fans reacting to something that, hey, this is something that'll love me back. This is something that I can grasp with both hands. I'll give you guys just an idea of how a fan feels because I am that fan. The last A's jersey that I have with a name on it is from, I think, 2011. It's Josh Willingham. He was there 1 year. He put up like 20 and 100. I thought he was going to re-sign and be with the team for years, and it turns out he wasn't. But that's how long it's been since I've been able to buy a jersey with a name on it back with any sort of confidence. So fans want something they can hold on to. The second part of that is, I think with what you saw with how many articles were written about the team, that I kind of get the feeling that whereas most journalists need to be objective, there are a lot of people out there that wanted to write a positive story about Oakland, that really wanted to jump on this news in the light that, and this is conjecture, they weren't really feeling the A's going to Vegas and seeing this story as a positive story for Oakland was something that they wanted to write about. So, for any of the dozens of articles that got written about us on launch, I was surprised with both the fan outreach, but also sort of the national outreach and the international outreach. There's all of a sudden there's a Spanish Ballers fan account and a UK Ballers fan account, which we didn't create. I'll have you know. So it's been really fun.
Yeah. Is there any German counts yet, or is that still far out?
Not yet, but I will be able to use my college German to speak to them if they so choose to get involved.
Oh, that's huge for the squad.
It's good you mentioned that because I saw that on the LinkedIn too. I was like, oh, should I ask him to do the cold open in German, or is that asking too much? Or just
man, should have endorsed the idea.
Okay.
Well, I will say, I mean, and we've joked, I think, on previous episodes about we need a positive podcast, because a lot of indie ball news tends to not be spectacular because, basically, I hope I explained to people is things going according to plan isn't newsworthy. It's things going off the rails. So, it was actually a bit refreshing and slightly surprising just how universal the positivity about it was. I mean, I'll say there were hesitations and concerns, I think, from everyone, but I think that's more or less because that's just, it's a new team, man. There's always going to be that. But I don't think anything about it really was about the core idea of it. And that was pretty interesting. I'm also pretty active in some fan groups for just baseball in general, which tend to have a pretty aggressively negative slant. And just whenever something comes up, it's not every time, but when something is there to be negative about, they'll go that way. And that made its way here and nothing was negative there. So it has been really well received, and that's interesting to see. What are is there anything in particular, I guess, because you did talk to how you want to give back to the community and show love to the community. Obviously winning helps, and having a team they can be proud of. And I'm not even going to harp on that too much because I know it's probably occupying so much of your mind. But I guess away from the field a little bit, what seems to be prioritized here? I know you mentioned down the road some things like, they can have an ownership stake or what have you. But is there anything immediate that is seen as like the priority? Like, let's open the doors, or let's show like who we are, or where is, I guess, point one for trying to meet people where they are as the Oakland Ballers?
So I think that part we sort of have done in August and September, having some meetings with community, having meetings with different let's think of the right term. Community stakeholders is a good term.
Okay.
And so understanding what kind of positive impact we can have within the community. So I think if you want to look at the easy, like, road to travel, urban youth baseball is one area in which Major League Baseball has put a lot of priority with the RBI program, among other things. Right now, what kind of a way that we can impact that today in year one? Can we have community benefits like, Ballers club team, youth teams? There's a lot of things like that, and other ways that we want to get into, sort of giving fans and giving the community at large a chance to interact with us, a chance for us to interact with them. Probably a lot of stuff which we haven't announced, just so that we can understand what is year one stuff, what is stuff we want to do, but we probably don't want to, sacrifice our time and efforts on them in year one, knowing that, we've got to launch. There's things we have to do by June the 4th. There's things we have to do by May the 20th. There's things we have to do before, let's say, March the 1st. So there are priorities we want to put in place for some of that stuff. This is a long way of saying, I'm not really sure right now what will and won't get in there. But you're going to see, with some announcements, I think we'll have them in the next few months, different programs or different activities that are going to sort of speak to what we want to accomplish long term with the program.
Okay. And I feel like we've gotten a big picture and, down the line on some things. So I'll bring it back to sort of your wheelhouse a little bit more here, because two things I'm curious with, and I'll start because we already discussed it a bit, is number one, the ballpark. So I guess it's not fully on the baseball side, but it's baseball adjacent. I guess we'll give it. You said there's a plan to bring some stands in. Is that sort of, what is that even? I can't think of something similar to that, like, bringing in stands or bringing in areas for people to sort of congregate around a field that doesn't have a large capacity. So are you able to sort of preview anything that's going to be coming to the college and around the field, or is that something that's going to be rolled out in a more dramatic way that I shouldn't be trying to trounce on our podcast?
It might be rolled out in a more dramatic way. The way I want to answer your question is, if you look at Laney College now, it's not built in its current structure to host a minor league baseball event. So we would have to build it up so that it can. And I think that's the vague way of answering that. So whether that is expanding capacity from what it is now to, let's say, 2,500 fans and 3,000 altogether. And again, that's me pulling a number a little bit. But we will have to, part of, Laney, once everything is, set in stone so that we can take action on it. Part of what Laney is a field that is used by, Little League. It's used by multiple other colleges. It is a junior college itself. It is a junior college in the heart of Oakland. the use of it and building it up in and of itself is part of what we want to do as a community partner,
Right.
to create a space that can be used, can be enjoyed day and night. The lights at Laney were put in so that, teams can play from 10 to 10, if it's your local little league or if it's your junior college team. So, it is used by the community, more than even sort of I realize it is. So when we talk about, building up Laney, it's just a matter of getting it to a standard that, what folks might be used to, because right now we actually aren't sure if we, even with our current plans, have enough seats to accommodate folks with the kind of, response we've got. So it's a matter of, okay, what exactly is this going to look like year one for fans? How many can we accommodate? What is, reasonable within our timeline, and then off of that is, whether we make decisions now or down the line, building a more permanent home, understanding what that looks like. I think, with the larger area, I would imagine a permanent home would seat something closer to a stadium like, Rocky Mountain rather than a stadium like, Missoula per se. Just because of the size of other than the Chicago Dogs or, Chicago or New York teams, we're going to be the largest market in independent baseball, or the 10th largest media market in the country. So, we will want a stadium eventually that can accommodate that type of interest.
Okay. That makes sense. And I will allow for things not to be spoiled in the podcast. Fine. But okay, that is good to hear. At least there's that sort of forward thinking element too. Nick, do you have anything here? Cause I'm going back to baseball. I'm making my way there. I got back to the stadium, downtown? Almost to the field. So I'm going, but before I'll, Nick, do you got anything that you want to kick in before I start diving down that rabbit hole?
I did. And then I started to check something to make sure that I wasn't asking a dumb question. And then I forgot the question itself. So I'll let you go down the rabbit hole while I try to recover my question. And hopefully it won't be dumb and it'll be worth the wait.
Oh, damn. That was it, man. All right. So, I gotta say, this is not really the big, welcome to this baseball operations gig that many people would love to be like, congratulations. We have no roster. I understand that there are teams in leagues that basically do start that way just as a choice. So it's not like it's not done fairly frequently within the indie ball circle, but you have quite a challenge here. And I'm sure that you've managed to hear, and you've already mentioned, I know I've done baseball operations. You're tied up in the result and the potential future results, and you have the Oakland ties. There's a lot in it. But trying to push a lot of that stress out, what has been sort of the list of priorities? What does that even look like for somebody who is put in a baseball operations role that is literally, okay, find player number one? I can't even, for me, I was like, I love baseball ops. I've been around it. And then my first official baseball ops job, we already had a roster, and I was still like, this is a lot to deal with. I had to sign like 20 guys, and I was like, this is a lot to deal with. So I can't imagine really where you're coming from.
So, I'll start with this. So when I took over in Rocky Mountain, we were close to the same situation. Not fair, not zero players, but we had just finished the season where we had finished the Monclova deal. Mm-hmm. We had a number of players. At the end of the season, we had our own roster of 25. Mm-hmm. So we didn't start with zero. We had a roster of 25, but the idea was that when I took over, we were going to more or less start over fresh and create from the ground up our first team, our first chance at an off season to create our own team. So, having nothing, actually didn't really put me off, because it gave me more of a clean slate to work off of than usual. I think the first, if you want to sort of take it through timeline, where did I start first? Well, I started first with Pioneer League free agency, which began on October 15th. So there were a number of guys who I targeted, having just been with the Vibes in 23, and including the rest of the league that we were interested in. I think you've seen some of those guys who we've announced. And that's where I started initially. And, as Don and Micah came on the project, we were able to use their amazing networks to not just procure talent, but also check in on talent. Because if, let's say, X player played at this level, well, I can use Don and he can check in with a scout on that team. And, he, with the amount of major league organizations he's been with, as a player and as a front office executive and as a coach, it's just one, it gives so much credibility to what we're trying to do with Don. And his guidance is amazing. Because I feel like he knows everything. And he and I and Micah, we probably talk 3 times a day, since we all got on the project. But it's fun, and it's fun in the sort of way that I took the Mets in MLB 06 the show to the World Series. It's that kind of fun, right? Yeah. But I don't treat it that way. Because, when I was in 2021 with the Chuckers, I rode on the bus with them every day. I was on these 12-hour bus rides. These guys who, maybe none of them were going to get to an affiliated team. We tried, and there were some really good players that never got a chance. But just understanding what that grind is like in independent baseball, to understand that, look, everyone, you're probably an amazing player all through high school. You probably were all conference in college. Now nobody wants you at 23, 24. You come to a town you've never been before. You're playing in front of people you don't know. You don't know if you're being seen. You get on the bus, you drive 8 hours to another state you've never been before. I try my best to make sure these guys are taken care of. So I was doing things I'd never done before, like booking hotels and booking buses and booking food and doing things as a traveling secretary in 21 that, my goal was to just make sure these guys are taken care of. And so that is what informs me now on how to approach players, how to talk to them, knowing that this is not fantasy baseball. What this is, and sort of the part I don't like about it all is, really almost having these guys' lives in your hands, and, they're trusting you and you're trusting them. And it takes a mutual commitment to make sure that this is the right thing for them. And you want to make sure that this is something they want to do and they want to get into, whether it's their first year out of college, whether this is their 3rd year in indie ball. You meet guys who are all over the spectrum in their baseball career journeys. So that is, how I approach each player. For me, baseball operations is just an offshoot of another type of communications, which is what my career really is. And it's just a matter of conversation, talking with people, understanding what we can offer the player, what the players want. Something that was very important to my operations in Rocky Mountain was our ability to create video and create video with TrackMan data, to send it to clubs, to get guys seen, to get scouts in the stadium. And we were very successful with that. We didn't have an in-season signing, but we were very successful at getting guys' names out there. And that's one program, our player marketing program, which I'm bringing to Oakland, as sort of the flagship, program for us as far as what we do for our players, because I really think that there's a lot of resources out there that independent teams can hook into, if they have someone like in my position. I mean, my role is more or less bring guys in and then to move them up to major league organizations. And I know that does not exist anywhere else in the Pioneer League. And you guys who know better about the other partner leagues, but I really don't know how many other teams across the partner leagues have someone in my role or even Don's role that are just hired for the baseball ops portion of the front office. So I mean, we can talk about players specifically and how we source them, but as far as sort of how we go about it, that's more or less how we go about it.
The number one thing I was thinking about too was just with, again, looking at empty roster, it's got to be so tempting to do more of the I'm looking for the word, that show where they would let you loose in a grocery store, and you would just just clearing shelves, and being like, we need get 2 of them, sure. Open up a storage container, see if there's any Molinas in there. I'm with you, but like, it is good to hear, and it is sort of, I'm sure it's almost got to be almost a forced mentality to just say, there's a lot of open spots, but they'll get filled with the right people, and they need to be the type of people who we are helping them as in ways that they are helping us as well, and sort of meeting in the middle and finding that common ground. So is that like, I guess, player first in a lot of ways? I mean, player first, it has a lot of connotations to it. I mean, that makes it seem like, you don't care about the end result. But I think if you seem to have an understanding that putting the players at the top of your mind will yield good results.
I think that's certainly a fair reading of that. I think when you look at an empty roster and you think, I'll say this. So when I was with the Vives, I don't know that I was taking a much different approach in the off season than I am now, but the start of our season in 23, we went 10-20. We were 8 games under, and we finished the season in the second half 12 games over. My mindset and how I'm approaching this off season is different. I know that, and we're building the roster differently than we tried to in 23. And again, this is a collaborative effort. I am by no means just being capricious with what I do. Like I said, I'm in conversation with Micah and Don every day. It's Micah's roster. He decides who makes his team. It's my job to, not evaluate, but identify potential talent. And with Les Lancaster and myself last year, we had a very similar relationship. As he was as the manager in Rocky Mountain. So what we do is we take a more targeted approach. We're taking less speculative chances right now. I think what you're seeing with our roster building efforts is because we want this to succeed now in Oakland. If I was somewhere else, if I didn't have as much connection, I might feel different. But because this is really going to matter, we have to have slam dunks now. So when we're being targeted, we're targeting folks with starting roles in mind. I don't know that we're going to have more than, say, 32 guys at camp. We're targeting guys as contributors. And we can't really afford to make too many mistakes along the way, because we've got to get out to a hot start first. I think with some of the early signings, you're going to see guys who have either proven track records in college, bring some sort of leadership quality to the table, have performed in the Pioneer League before, guys along those lines. Now, there's a lot of guys who are sort of buy low, high talent, high potential kind of guys that we probably will miss out on, and other teams will reap the benefits from that. And so that could be, something which will pass us by. But for how we're approaching this now, we're being extremely selective with how we go about this, because we feel the pressure from ourselves, more or less, to make sure that we are a success from day one.
Interesting. Sorry, I'm sort of taking all that in, because that's typically, talking to baseball operations people, they say something along the lines of, well, you want to get out to a quick start, but we'll see how it goes in the beginning and then kind of adjust from there. So it got my attention to hear you say, like, no, we need to get off to a fast start. And and how that affects the roster building, especially in indie ball where there's a lot of, we'll see what kind of comes our way and go, and to see someone just aggressively shooting for, starters is kind of refreshing and also a little interesting.
The fun thing is too, is whatever media training most folks have. I'm just a broadcaster. They put it, like I said, they put a fan in charge. I like, guys, I like when I'm talking to players, I more or less tell them, hey, like, to be honest with you, like we don't have a spot for you. Like we don't.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll say, I'll try to get somewhere else. Like it's not really this, hey, we'll let you know kind of thing. It's, look, this is where we are. These are the guys we've signed. I don't think right now that you have a spot, and I wouldn't want to bring you into camp because we think these guys are better. Now, someone can always surprise us, and that's the great thing about the Pioneer League tryout camp is we have the extra spot from it. We are going to have an opportunity to see guys that we may have, passed up on, but for me, I find that a lot of guys respond better to me just being honest with them and trying to help them out, rather than, saying, hey, it's really interesting. We'll keep you on file. We'll let you know. We've taken a lot of information, from guys. We have probably about 120 emails in my inbox and I'm very glad I made a players at oaklandballers.com account for the website, because now everyone has one place to go and we take their info, we put them into our system and I can sort through them. But it's the sort of thing where, I have all this information. If a player reaches out to me, I'll just be honest with them and we can go from there. But, what we're doing is trying to, and Don and Micah know what they're looking for too.
Right.
So they're going to have, I think, a higher standard too anyway. And they may not be as aware of Pioneer League sort of standards as I might be. But I will also say this for the Pioneer League. I think you've seen the talent pool get better and better each year, especially now with Major League Baseball organizations cutting 15 more players before the start of camp this year. You're going to see the talent pool expand even more so, because that's 400 players, something around there.
Right.
That'll be cut. The league is trying to position itself as what it was meant to be, as that post-draft league, as something that is there for rounds 21 through 40. That guys can go and become, have that showcase for themselves, where they would have gotten overlooked otherwise.
Okay. Agreed. Definitely have seen the quality of play get better in the Pioneer League. That is, the baseball operations side of my brain is spinning. So I guess the last thing I have on the baseball side, and I'll kick it back to Nick if Nick wants to wrap things up. Have you seen, it does jump at me that of the major indie leagues, you are one of two, but currently basically you are the only indie team, out of the major indie leagues that is in California. There's obviously a lot of talented ball players in California. Have you seen that as a benefit, or are you hoping it will be a benefit down the road, or you think it's just going to come out in the wash?
You mean as far as recruiting California talent?
Yeah, having a leg up on maybe some of the other people. Because you always see, in Lexington, we'd always have a couple UK guys or people out of Lexington, but the talent around Lexington baseball wise is not quite what it is when it comes to, a wide range of California and the Bay Area.
So, yes. So we are putting a huge emphasis on having local talent. So one thing which sort of is guiding me right now is a not fully imposed, self-imposed homegrown rule. So similar to, let's say, European soccer, where you have to have, or even actually, I think domestic soccer has this too, where you have to have a certain number of players from your home country. I am sort of building our roster with that in mind. So you might see 5 to 8 players on our roster from the Bay Area. As far as our ability to recruit California players, the answer is yes. Guys do want to stay here. If they're Bay Area guys, I think the question is, do I want to stay hyperlocal, or do I have the ability to play at what they think is a higher indie level? For example, if they have an option to play in the American Association, do they take that, or do they stay here, make more money, and then also, play in front of a fan base that is, just ravenous for some good baseball? Now, will our ability to sign players be better after year one? Yes. As it was, recruiting to guys before launch was an interesting experience because we sort of had to tell the guys, no, I promise you we'll exist. And I promise you we'll exist in 24 and not 25. Because what most teams do is they announce a year in advance. They tell you where the park's going to be. You can watch it slowly be built all that time. But we have to play in 24 because of the situation in Oakland, right? So, I think after year one, or really what I think is once the season starts and people get an idea of how much resources we are going to put into our project, our media, the kind of visibility we're going to be able to give players. Because, for the first time ever, for me working in a baseball city, we won't need scouts to travel to come see us because they're already here. So that really helps what I'm trying to do as far as not just recruiting tool, but part of my evaluation is how successful we are at moving players up. So that is something to which I'm really looking forward to once the season starts. And then I think you'll see once there's more general understanding, not just of us, but of indie ball in general, I think people will understand this is not a last chance sort of league, but more of a first chance sort of opportunity. Once you played your 4 years at, Middle Tennessee State or Chapman University, whatever it might be, that, okay, I didn't get drafted. Well, now I go play indie ball. The analogy I was trying to use for folks who sort of didn't quite understand indie ball was, if you watch the Welcome to Wrexham documentary, I think Wrexham in that documentary was non-league. I think they were their fifth tier.
Yeah.
So you probably couldn't tell me about Hartlepool or Mansfield or any other teams, but you knew about Wrexham. You probably didn't know whether Wrexham was Premier League or not, but you knew about Wrexham. And that's how we want to be. Is you might not know what the Pioneer League is or really indie ball in general, but you know the Oakland Ballers. And that's the kind of string we're trying to pull.
Yeah, I was going to use that comparison, kicking myself now.
That's what started my whole European soccer thing from earlier. I was like, this feels Wrexham.
I thought so. I lied. I got one more but you can keep it short. I just want to get out there. How'd the Dondre Hubbard signing come along? Because seeing him leave Missoula is interesting. Is it because of the franchise player rule, which, for those who don't know, that allows the Pioneer League teams to sign one player whose eligibility would have run out typically. So he fits that category. He was last year's batting champ, so it was a big signing right off the bat. How did that come about? Was it Missoula didn't have a spot for him, or was it that you were able to sort of entice him over?
Well, Missoula used their franchise player spot, I believe, on
I think Cody Thompson, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, I was going to let you guys say it because I was Cam Thompson, I believe his name is. Yeah. And you get one choice. I love the franchise rule, first of all, because is for the eligibility going down, I think you needed to have something in place that allowed you to have sort of a either more veteran presence or someone who honestly the fans have become accustomed to and can relate to and able to see year in, year out a little bit more. I watched Andre in 21 with Grand Junction. I watched him in 23 from afar, because we didn't play Missoula when he was there. But really the way that came about is he has a personal connection with our manager. And so when we were looking at players, I had to inform Micah that Dondre actually was ineligible. And then we started thinking about what would we have to do? And so our stipulation for that, since we don't have players, is he has to have ties to the Bay Area. Well, Dondre started his career here. He started in the Old Pacific Association. He wore 24 for Willie Mays. And so we thought, well, that's it. That's perfect. He's got the Bay Area ties. So he's also going to be one of our assistant hitting coaches, which is going to be really cool for him. So he's going to get his first coaching role in the Bay Area, where he also started his playing career. So he'll be an assistant hitting coach under Micah as well. And I expect to see him in the lineup every night and doing what he did in Missoula. And, you know, he was the kind of guy when we said, you know, what's going to be our first announcement? We're like, well, it's got to be him.
It's a good thing to build around. You got that right. Nick, I'll go back to you, and I'll step aside here finally, because we have definitely been talking Tyler's ear off here. We're digging into his day a little.
Yeah, like I only had one other thing to add because it came back to the thing, but I think we pretty much touched on, which was just talking about the caliber of play in the Pioneer League. I know we mentioned, you know, it's supposed to replace those later rounds in the draft, and obviously we talked a lot about the restrictions of being a league for people to start the careers in, which I find it, you know, almost poetic that it mirrors that you're playing on Laney College's campus, a school that was featured in Last Chance U. Now you're the first chance for a lot of other players. So I find that almost like kind of poetic symbolism there. But I just talking a little bit about the Pioneer League and just quickly going through like the general caliber of play for Oakland fans, because obviously a lot of people that listen here, they kind of know the Pioneer League, but I'm sure we'll get a lot of other people that just like, they're big on the Ballers. They really want to start, you know, following indie ball, following the Pioneer League. Just what can they expect from that caliber of play?
Well, I think, you know, there's we wanted to give fans an opportunity to really learn about what the differences are, because the closest thing fans had for independent baseball in their minds probably would have been something like the Pacific Association, which is no longer existing. I don't know that fans know that the Pecos League is a thing that exists. But I also didn't want them to think that was what we were, which is, you know, more of the semi-pro, that players don't get paid, that this is professional baseball. And when the Ballers came to be, you know, the one thing that our co-founders knew that this had to be was professional baseball, not a college would that league, not something, it had to be professional. So, you know, we put out a little explainer on social media about, you know, get to know the Pioneer League. I think that was sort of the first step for folks to go, okay, this is what this is. You know, we're not going to be signing when I think of the Atlanta League, I think of Scott Kazmir and Logan Morrison. You know, that is not the kind of player we're looking at. We're looking at players who were, let's say, you know, all conference Division I players who never really had a shot because they were undersized. I'm just, you know, making up sort of okay. So I think there will be a little bit of a learning curve. I think the main thing for folks is, if you're coming to a Ballers game, that we provide them with the same type of family entertainment atmosphere that people know minor league baseball for. So folks in the area know San Jose Giants baseball. They know Stockton Ports baseball. And they actually, you know, if you're a baseball fan, you actually make those drives because, you know, living in the East Bay, I actually wanted to go see Buster Posey, Madison Bumgarner in San Jose, and I did. And I still have a little Posey 7 San Jose Giants shirt jersey. Likewise, I did the same thing with Stockton. We used to go to a Ports game the same way I would go to River Cats game. Like, there's a really, really cool ecosystem of baseball in the Bay Area. And we want to be another, you know, part of that. And so I think we want fans to understand that from the family entertainment perspective, we will be doing all the same things that you know minor league baseball to be. And really, the play on the field from that perspective shouldn't be a whole lot different. Yeah. You're not going to have your blue chip prospects, but with the type of talent that is in the league, we are playing at about a low A level from everything I hear. And that kind of play is something that fans shouldn't be all that unaccustomed to. The difference between Major League Baseball will be obviously great. And that's, it's not even really something I'm thinking about too closely, because I think it's more about fans engaging with us and celebrating more than hanging and dying on every pitch. I know I will be, and I know there certainly will be fans who will. But I think in this first year, what you're going to see is, you know, no matter the success on the field, you know, like I was saying earlier, our success will be determined by something completely different than our record. That being said, it's going to be a huge disappointment for me if we don't win a championship. And that is basically what I when I'm on the phone for 8 hours a day now is occupying my mind constantly.
Yeah, definitely. And hey, a championship makes it all that much better, though. Might as well add on to that. And obviously, you don't spend just 8 hours a day on the phone. You also spend 2 hours a day on Zoom calls with guys like us. So we definitely appreciate you taking the time to do that. Ryan, if you have anything else left to do, I hit that. If not, I guess, Tyler, I'll give you the floor to promote anything you want to promote, say anything you want to say. If we missed a topic that you wanted to get to that maybe we didn't spend enough time on, or just, like I said, missed, you can do that. Whatever you want to do with like the last few minutes, you can go for it.
Yeah, I just want to say, hey, like if there's any folks who listen to this and our Ballers fans or want to get involved, I just want to say like a huge thank you to all you guys, because but I said it before, I'll say it again, I was completely blown away with the kind of reception we got, how ready fans were to accept us, which I didn't know we were going to have that kind of acceptance from day one. But I really am going to try very hard to make sure that trust is not taken, lightly at all, and that we can give you something that you can cheer about. But that's all I want to say.
Great. And as far as if they want to find more information on the Ballers, from the Ballers?
OaklandBallers.com, at Oakland Ballers on Twitter or whatever, X.
Yeah,
and then at Oakland.Ballers on Instagram.
Okay.
If I just say X, no one knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah, we do this every week too. We're like the site formerly known as Twitter.
Yeah,
but yeah. We always
the grind.
We appreciate you coming on, man. We appreciate you taking a lot of time out of your day to talk to us. So,
thank you so much, Tyler.
Thanks, fellas. Anytime.
All right. Once again, I just want to thank Tyler for coming on the show. Appreciate him taking the time to do that. I mean, we took about solid 2 hours of his time to talk our nonsense, and then the actual interview that was insightful and good.
Yeah, he was way too kind, way too generous.
Exactly, to deal with our BS. But any event, we'll have another interview next week. Jack Kelly's interview is actually up, and you can watch him try to explain analytics to me in like the same way you try to explain how money works to a child, and just watch me try really hard, but just God bless him for trying.
I think that was a great comparison, because not only you watch the eyes kind of glaze over, but also you really see them start to lose their faith in humanity as you explain currency. And kind of the same effect talking analytics with you for baseball. So yeah, no, 1-to-1 comparison, no notes.
If you want to go ahead and throw some plugs on there, you could do that. If not, all I really have to say is Indie Ball Pod on Twitter, Indie Ball Report everywhere else. Continue to submit questions for the Q&A. Would love to get those so that way we could actually have stuff to answer on the show in 2 weeks. So, yeah, that's my final plug.
Mine would be, I guess, Indie Ball Nation. Couple shout outs to the scoregami that just happened, 63-21 in the Thursday Night Football game. Terrific work. Shout out to the Lancaster employee, or possibly former employee, I don't know where everybody's at on that, who not only shouted out the sort of placeholder logo for Gastonia to me, also shouted out the Chowda Heads rebrand. So he's 2 for 2 in clutch news breaks with me this week. And I guess shout out to the Rockford Reapers, my new out of the park baseball team, which I'm using to eat up time where I should be working on things that are productive. But I am not. So good job, Ryan.
When are we getting the live stream?
I don't know. I'm seeing how this goes. There might be an Indie Ball related live tweet type of thing just to gauge traction. And then maybe a YouTube video. We'll see. But the Rockford team is a different thing entirely. I'm back in the year 1871 with a 13-man roster.
Live stream.
The spot of the. Hey, if you want a weird read, okay, I'll give you one and you can cut it. I'll give you one and you can cut it. Where was it? It was I have it saved somewhere because it was so incredibly weird. Oh no. Oh well. It was the Rockford Forest Cities was the original team. And there's this great little thing on their Baseball Reference BR bullpen, which is like, how they're basically like their history way to, I don't even know the best way to describe it. Like how they would just, their like history side just gives the background things. And about their field, it was talking about how like the Rockford local press would always refer to it as like the finest ball field in all the country, like hard pressed to find another one. And then, or no, it was Saber who said this, pointed that out. And it was like, however, like another press person had this to say: the games were played on the fairgrounds, and a poorer baseball field, to my mind, has never been known. Trees in every direction. There was a cluster of 5 around third base. The catcher was hemmed in by trees, with the exception of a space of about 30 by 50 feet. An umpire could not see a foul unless it hit back of the plate or a few feet on either side of the baselines. Between the plate and second base, the terrain was fairly level, but approaching third base was a noticeable rise, and from third to the plate, there was a depression, and the base runner had to dig in for life. At the edge of the outfield was a deep gutter to take care of water from the quarter-mile racetrack, and why more fielders did not break legs in this trap was because Providence protected them. The bleachers were situated along first base, and the plate would accommodate about 300 to 500. They were made of bridge planking. Dude, that, hey, look, New England could be worse. Having to drop a rebrand of your new brand is not that bad. You could have a drainage ditch in your outfield that only by the grace of God is not snapping legs.
Can we just backtrack to one thing for the last point in the show?
Sure, man. Why not? You're a terrible podcast.
Okay, fair. Where was the depression on this field?
First of all, it sounds like everywhere to me. It was from third to the plate, there was like a noticeable depression. And it sounds like guys basically had to like run uphill.
So that between third base and home plate, there was the depression there. Correct?
Yeah.
Okay, yep. Glad to see we know where they put their analytics department.
Shout out to Sam Miller's, maybe the finest article Sam Miller ever wrote, which was, if there was a hole in the field, like where should it go? Or
front of home plate, duh.
Where the pit would go if there was a pit. Where the pit would go if there was a pit. That is the article name. Look it up. It's fantastic.
Well, I know one thing. This show would be in the pit if there was ever such a thing as the pit. And on that note, I'm not going to cut that Forest City bit because otherwise this outro makes no sense. Which
I think it was art. Why would you cut it?
That's a fair point. And just like all art, everything must end. So until next time, do not forget to play ball.